here I am again, and today I am in my local football club. Not to take pictures of football related things, but to go down into the creek that's just over there and get some photographs of the beautiful light that comes through the canopy. And there's a little bridge and there's a tree that reflects into the water. So I've come out for about an hour, try and demonstrate a few different compositional techniques and use of light and that sort of thing. So yeah, without any further ado, let's go and see what we can find. So here I am at the creek edge, well actually on a bridge across the creek, not really the edge, and the light is coming and going through the canopy, which is great. The light in these sort of shots is everything really, and this is what I'm trying to demonstrate today with regard to using that mottled light, sunlight bursting through the canopy. It's fantastic. However, I have had a slight hiccup early on. Came down here and was setting up, and there was beautiful water, was smooth as, and the reflection was great, and the light on the tree was great. But then there was a couple of small children playing over by the tree, and they decided to throw their football in, which is okay. It did mess up the surface somewhat and made ripples that I wasn't expecting, but like any good photographer, you have to adapt. So I decided to change my tact, and rather than worry about the smooth water and the reflections for this one, I'd photograph the ball. Why not? See what you think. Okay, so I've moved off the bridge now to a different vantage point, just the other side, and I'm going for my portrait mode shot, which I originally intended before the football changed that perspective. And this time I've got a neutral density filter on the front of the lens here. That's a 4-stop neutral density filter. That's because I want to have a nice long exposure with regard to this to try and smooth the water out. So that's going to darken the amount of light that's coming into the sensor, and that enables me to shoot at an exposure here of about 4 seconds with the aperture really small, about f32, so the smallest this lens will allow you to go. So what that will do is it will make everything nice and sharp, but it would also smooth the water out, because in 4 seconds the ripples would have smoothed out, so you're going to get nice smooth water. The light is fantastic. It's as you can see on my face, it's very mottled, and it's breaking different parts of the canopy. There's some really beautiful yellow light that's kind of been diffused through the trees, and as I say, the foreground bridge adds a bit of perspective, which is always good with landscape photography if you can find something of interest, not just some dull rock or half a tree. Try and find something that has some interest if you're going to add that foreground perspective. And yeah, so let's take this shot and see what the results are like. Okay, so I've made a few changes. I've moved the camera back a little bit, I've raised the tripod a little bit, and I've gone to landscape. The only difference with this shot, apart from that particular composition, is that I've now gone to an aperture f2.8, which is a nice big wide aperture. And I've done that and focused on that tree, the reflected tree in the background there, and that's going to blur out the foreground. Okay, so that's going to give a different perspective to the bridge than we had in the last shot, where the bridge was nice and sharp. And again, it's one of those great examples of when you're set up in the same situation, you can get 2, 3 different variations on the same shot, just considering the light and considering your depth of field from the same position. So, okay, here we go, all set up. Let's press the shutter and see what the differences are. Okay, just a quick recap on some of those photos and the settings. I know I go on about in the workshops about aperture priority and shutter priority as being a great way to learn how to use your camera. And this is a classic example. Okay, I've used 2 different settings with regard to aperture and with regard to the river, or the creek rather, and the bridge, by focusing on the background on that tree and having a very large aperture, f2.8. The bridge is nicely blurred out and it makes that tree in the distance pop and the light pop, and it creates a very interesting composition. With regard to a very small aperture like the f32, the bridge is in focus, the tree's in focus, it's nice and sharp. Again, it's a great shot, and that may be what you're after. You may even choose on aperture priority, for example, to have a very large aperture and focus on the bridge, which will make the bridge very, very sharp and the tree in the background very, very blurred, which, if that's the composition you're after, that's terrific. With regard to shutter priority, where you're just controlling the shutter speed, again, we've got movement here. There's water flowing under the bridge. It's not very much. But if you want to slow that down and you want that kind of milky, sort of smooth movement, you're going to have to have quite slow shutter speeds. Your problem on a day like today with nice bright sunlight is that your camera will want to have enough light coming in, which is going to shoot at way too big an aperture for you to be able to get that smooth, milky effect. So my advice is look at filters, look at neutral density filters. I was using a 4-stop one, which brings the darkness, or it actually darkens down the amount of light coming in, which enabled me to shoot at a reasonable aperture and at 4 seconds. If I'd been using a 10-stop neutral density filter, for example, I probably could have got down to 30-second exposure and the water would have been absolutely smooth and milky and would have created a whole new type of image. Lots of things you can do just using aperture priority and shutter priority. So practice, even if you're indoors, find something indoors to do and practice with one composition and just different settings within that composition, and I think you'll be surprised by the results. So here I am at the last location, still on the same piece of the creek, but I'm about 100 meters up in that direction, and basically just come up onto this bridge which goes across the creek over to where one of the schools is. Now, the water's running this way towards us, and we're quite high up, which isn't normally that advantageous. But the light, although it's not out at the moment, the light has been particularly stunning through here. And when it does, it sort of has these nice yellows and even these rays coming out from the corner, which is illuminating the foliage, and it's absolutely fantastic. So, wasn't expecting this shot, but I'm going to set the tripod up, put it in portrait mode, and see if I can get this nice meandering creek down here illuminated with these glorious sun's rays when they eventually come out. So, let's wait and see. Okay, well, I'm back. That's the end of my little jaunt round the creek down here in the gap. I must admit, when I put this football goalpost behind me when I first started this video today, I wasn't expecting it to be football related. And then, well, as you saw, there's a football in the shot. Bizarre. Anyway, that's what happens with photography. Sometimes it's good to keep your eyes open, and if things don't go the way you planned or something else throws up the unexpected, then take advantage of it. You know, get the camera out and reset your shot, change your composition, do what you have to do. You know, it might not work, but a bit of fun. So look, I'm not sure how long the restrictions will last with regard to lockdown and that, as they're changing all the time. So I may not be able to get out and about again for a while, but I'll see. If not, I can do some of these videos indoors, and I will be creative and flexible. In the meantime, with all sincerity, stay safe, be healthy, and look after you and your loved ones. And just contact me if you've got any questions about photography or how to photograph footballs that appear in unusual places. All right, take care, guys. Bye.